Amiibo quickly became a fan favorite among Nintendo enthusiasts, prized not only as collectible figures but also for their interactive features. In the Super Smash Bros. Series, they take on a more dynamic role, functioning as customizable AI fighters that players can train and challenge against others' Amiibo. This has led to a small section of the Smash community to dedicate themselves to training the strongest Amiibo they can in order to win Amiibo tournaments. Over the years, the meta grew to heavily favor certain characters and archetypes more than others, creating an often over-centralized meta if there were no bans or heavy restrictions. I'm fammydamammy, longtime Amiibo nerd and trainer, and today I'll be talking about these characters, as well as the history of the strongest Amiibo over the course of the entire Amiibo scene's history, from Smash for Wii U and 3DS to now in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. To start things off, in Smash 4, competitively trained Amiibo centered around staying on the ground and playing defensive, with their frame-perfect reaction time and mashing capabilities. Smash 4's early metagame was defined by equipment bonuses such as Explosive Perfect Shield, Critical Hit capability, and improved escapability. The meta at the start was centralized around these bonuses. Amiibo only needed one frame to react to an attack with a perfect shield, and thus would always be able to take advantage of Explosive Perfect Shield in neutral, where it dealt about 15% and could kill at around 100%. One may think the counterplay to this is to just grab, but with frame perfect mashing, in combination with improved escapability, and Amiibo being hard-coded to always pummel at least twice, an Amiibo would never be able to successfully throw another Amiibo until far past 100% damage, which made grabs near useless. There was also Critical Hit capability, which gave the user a 20% chance to triple the damage of any attack they landed, and in combination with the max attack stat, pretty much meant an instant KO option for most characters. Adding to that insanity was that Explosive Perfect Shield itself could land a critical hit, which meant dealing a whopping 45% damage off a single perfect shield. This trifecta of bonuses would later be known as Rock, Paper, Scissors, where it quickly rose to power with the meta revolving around being able to counterplay it in addition to using it yourself. However, there was a character on the horizon that would emerge and bring the metagame to its knees. The undeniable strongest Amiibo in early Smash 4 was Little Mac. Despite being designed around having polarized strengths and weaknesses, Little Mac is by far and away the strongest figure player in the entire metagame, at least in a metagame with no bans or restrictions. He can end games in a matter of seconds thanks to his forward smash, being an extremely powerful super armor wielding move that can instantly break shields when angled downward, and with enough investment into their attack stat. And if that wasn't enough, he also had KO Punch, which is practically a one-hit kill, as well as Slip Counter, which in Smash 4, the AI was able to use on reaction. Because of this, Little Mac was quickly banned from competitive play, but was later brought back with the restriction that he can no longer run any attack boosting stats or bonus effects. And even with this restriction, he still remained one of the strongest contenders in the meta, with plenty of top-level representation. However, it wouldn't take long for new competitors to take his place.
What is this power?
Lucina, and by extension, Marth, would take Little Mac's place as the best Amiibo in the game. Lucina and Marth possess two specific tools that make them extremely formidable opponents. Their side special, Dancing Blade, and their down special, Counter. Even though Smash 4's AI could react to their opponent's attacks near frame perfectly, they would do so against the first hit, and then drop shield and then get hit by the rest of the attack. This meant that Dancing Blade was a very solid move for dealing damage. Other characters that were considered top tier, particularly Bowser and Ganondorf, especially struggled against the move due to their big bodies as Marth and Lucina became more prevalent in tournaments. Lucina and Marth also have their counter, and with a specific custom move, its damage and speed would increase significantly with no major drawbacks. This allowed them to effortlessly counter many oncoming attacks and often resulted in a one-hit KO if the move was strong enough, such as a Bowser forward smash. It's important to note that Bowser actually had a good matchup against Marth and Lucina. Sure, he would die instantly if he used a forward smash, but Bowser's claim to fame in Smash 4 was Flying Slam spam, which often went before Lucina or Marth could use Dancing Blade. This created a trifecta of sorts in the late metagame. Marth and Lucina would beat Link, Link would beat Bowser, and Bowser would beat Marth and Lucina. However, Marth and Lucina were still two of the best characters in the game. A big part of the late Smash 4 metagame was actually jabs. The best characters were Lucina and Marth because their side specials dealt more damage than a typical jab. But other characters like Luigi, Charizard, and Pac-Man were pretty much only used for their jabs. They found a great deal of success in the late metagame by spamming jab to essentially rack on free damage, and they all had forward smashes that were decent or good enough to be used as kill moves. Link, another top tier character, had an excellent jab, alongside a great forward smash and projectile that brought him very far in tournaments. The last amiibo in Smash 4 that I would like to mention is Cloud, who was introduced into the game later into its lifespan as DLC. Cloud's smash attacks were a standout feature, each dealing significant damage to his opponents. With enough points into his attack stat, his forward smash can even break a full shield, much like Little Max. Despite having one of the worst recoveries in the game and an AI that is incapable of using Limit Break, often wasting it on a Blade Beam, Cloud remained a dominant force in the metagame. To keep him balanced, he was only tournament legal if his attack stat was 60 or below. In addition to his smashes, Cloud also benefited from a reliable jab and an even stronger set of tilts, rounding out his offensive toolkit. Cloud pretty reliably beat Bowser and Ganondorf, but often lost to Marth and Lucina, which held him back from being the best amiibo in Smash 4. In 2018, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate was launched on Nintendo Switch, bringing over amiibo functionality from Smash 4. It took some time for the amiibo meta in Ultimate to settle, but early on it still revolved around grounded defensive play. That said, there were several key differences between Smash 4 and Ultimate metas right from the start. For one, amiibo can no longer rely on reactive counters to shut down attacks. Overpowered effects like critical hit capability and explosive perfect shield were either severely nerfed or made outright inaccessible. See my video on unobtainable spear effects for more on that. But most notably, amiibo can now be trained to use aerials properly and even edgeguard off stage effectively. This, in turn, allowed for a more dynamic stage list beyond Omega stages and occasionally Battlefield in Smash 4. One side effect of counters being toned down from Smash 4 to Ultimate was the rise of heavyweight characters in the amiibo tier list. While heavyweights were already strong in Smash 4, they were held back somewhat by how lethal counters were. especially from top-tier characters like Little Mac and Lucina, both of whom had powerful counter moves. Additionally, in the early days of Ultimate, tournaments often featured Spirits, the replacement for Smash 4's equipment system. But over time, the competitive scene shifted toward a vanilla format, where no Spirits were used at all. Many of Smash 4's top-tier amiibo, such as Little Mac and Lucina, started out strong in Ultimate but gradually declined as the meta evolved. However, one top tier from Smash 4 remained especially dominant in early Ultimate: Bowser. In Smash Ultimate, Bowser's status as the heaviest character, combined with his devastating smash attacks and innate heavy armor, made him a terrifying presence. He boasted an overwhelmingly favorable matchup spread, with only one true counter: Little Mac. But Little Mac was far easier to shut down than Bowser, losing to characters like Pokémon Trainer, Mii Gunner, Lucina, Palutena, and King Dedede in the early meta. As a result, Little Mac rarely made it far enough in brackets to pose a consistent threat to Bowser. Over time, Bowser became the first amiibo to regularly be banned from tournaments, thanks to his raw power and how easy he was to train effectively. With the release of Ultimate, several new characters also joined the amiibo roster for the first time. One of those being In November 2019, a new amiibo was on the horizon: Incinor. Released alongside Simon and Chrom, Incinor was almost immediately recognized as one of the strongest amiibo in Smash Ultimate. And it was all thanks to a single move: his side special, Alolan Whip. As the meta continued to develop, one trend became increasingly clear. Amiibo that used moving hitboxes, such as Donkey Kong's Grounded Spinning Kong or Captain Falcon's Raptor Boost, often developed very powerful, focused playstyles centered around those moves. Another, albeit less common, category of powerful moves were moving command grabs, like Incinor's Alolan Whip. Amiibo often struggled to deal with these types of attacks, typically defaulting to shielding or mistiming a spot dodge. But because command grabs bypassed shields entirely and lingered enough to catch mistimed spot dodges, they would break through and deal significant damage, often being able to kill or put the opponent in a very disadvantageous. On top of that, the AI was coded to time the input perfectly for maximum damage in a majority of circumstances. This made Incinor's overall damage output exceptionally high. Incinor amiibo were often trained to only use Alolan Whip and not very much else. This overwhelming strength and ease to train made it so that not long after their release, Incinor would become banned from tournaments. That is where he stands to this very day, at the very top of the tier list, even above Bowser, where Bowser was eventually unbanned. Even after the release of every new amiibo afterwards, there was one amiibo, however, that would eventually rise to be able to possibly rival Incinor: Kazia. Kazia was released in January 2023 alongside Sephiroth. He has one of the most intelligent AIs of any amiibo released to date. Thanks to hard-coded combos from his grab and electric Wind God Fist, Kazia can deal massive damage from just a few hits, on top of already having a strong, hard-hitting moveset overall. While one might assume Kazia would be difficult to train due to his complex special inputs, there's a notable quirk in how his amiibo learns. Specifically, the inputs for Dragon Uppercut and Electric Wind God Fist are close enough that teaching one often enables the amiibo to use both. This means trainers don't need to master the precise input for Electric Wind God Fist. Instead, they can rely on the simpler Dragon Uppercut input. In addition, trainers don't have to teach the Amiibo the full combos either. Simply teaching the combo starter is enough, as Kazia's AI will automatically fill in the rest once it reaches level 50. Kazia possesses a dominant matchup spread against nearly the entire cast, with his only real losing matchup being Incinor. Because of this, both Kazia and Incinor are frequently banned from tournament play. One final honorable mention goes to Mii Gunner. Mii Gunner's forward smash is an exceptional tool, long-ranged, multi-hitting, and lingering in place for an extended duration while dealing strong damage. Because of these properties, it tends to beat nearly every defensive option Amiibo might attempt, including perfect shielding and spot dodging. While the optimal counterplay is to hold shield for the entire duration, similarly in Smash 4, Amiibo often drop shield too early and still end up getting hit. Additionally, one of Mii Gunner's side specials, Gunner Missile, is a powerful zoning tool that lets Gunner overwhelm opponents from a distance, and attempts to block the projectile often result in getting punished by another missile or a well-timed forward smash from the Mii Gunner. While Incinor and Kazia are stronger than Mii Gunner is certainly stronger than everyone else in the cast. And that brings us to the current state of the Amiibo metagame. From the early chaos of Smash 4 to the more refined yet still brutal world of Smash Ultimate, the scene has evolved tremendously. And while the cast has grown and changed and training methods have become more advanced, one thing stays the same. The pursuit of building the strongest Amiibo remains as passionate and competitive as ever. Special thanks to Ethan from the Exion Vault for providing a majority of the information from Smash 4 and helping me edit the script for this video. That is all, see you again soon. Also, hard DK or literally any Amiibo trained for these videos with clickbait thumbnails are not the strongest. Yeah, I said it, and if any of these guys want to square up and prove me wrong,